We had just the two of us, small business. Andy was a gas installer, plumber, kitchen fitter. The business, obviously, there was no one to do the work, neither Andy nor myself. So it just stopped dead. It was a big knock to both of us, really. But I mean, all that time that I should have been taking care of our finances and was spent trawling the internet trying to find out what was wrong with my husband.
I managed bookies, betting shops. I couldn't cope with it, so I just gave my notice in.
My colleagues and my manager were very, very supportive. They realised there's sometimes I have to take time off to go to an appointment and I have to go with them. So that's fine. The company that I work for have very good people practices policies in place. So I use their policies, and they have carers leave. I have flexi leave. I've been there now for 10 years, so I have good holidays. So with a combination of all that, I can manage my working day.
As my mum's diagnosis progressed, I moved to part-time work, and I started my own business so I could work from home more. Financially, it had quite a negative impact, but we get by. But yeah, it was hard. It was hard for a couple of years. But I've been lucky enough to work. I started working full time again, and I got more help from family members, so they helped out more often. So my mum was able to go to more events and do more stuff with other family members, which allowed me to work full time.
Well, initially Joe taught chemistry. Things really did come to a head in his work when I got a phone call from school, from one of the staff saying, "Where is Joe?" What had happened was that Joe had thought it was Friday and it was actually Thursday. He wasn't there. He wasn't there for the children. Joe was allowed to get early retirement at that point, and we grabbed it. We managed to hold on to our house at that time, but we wouldn't have if we hadn't had the lump sum.
For people with dementia who have a diagnosis and are still in employment, it's very important that they go and speak to their employer so that they get the support that they require in order to continue doing their job. Now, dementia is a disability under the law, so it's very important that that's recognised, in which case the employer has certain duties that they have to do, one of which is that they have to make what are called reasonable adjustments, and that could be about changing the responsibilities that you have in your job, the type of role that you have, or it could be about having more flexible hours of working. The other things that an employer should do is to risk assess, and that means to do some sort of check to make sure that your issues are dealt with, they're adequately risk assessed, and that there's any measures that have to be taken or put into place so that you can continue in employment if that's what you choose to do. If a person with dementia approaches their employer early enough and adjustments are made, but in the long run they decide that the job's no longer for them, then the person obviously can take early retirement, and it's very useful and important to talk to the employer about that so that it preempts any problems that might arise. And also you can start to think about financial planning and make sure that the future in terms of benefits and any other things you need are in place before you leave your employment. If you're in employment and you're looking for advice and you've had a diagnosis, then you can approach your trade union if you've got one, but you could also approach organisations like ACAS, which are there to give advice to people in employment, or you could go to a Citizens Advice Bureau, or organisations which deal with dementia, organisations perhaps like Alzheimer's Scotland, but there are others.
The benefit system in the UK is essentially designed to support people through different parts of their life. So that might be people who are in employment but maybe have a low income, or to replace earnings, so people who are not working, perhaps because they're retired or they're unemployed, or it may be that they've taken on a commitment to care. Some other benefits that are designed specifically to help people who have an illness or a disability. So things like disability living allowance or attendance allowance or the newer personal independence payment, which are not necessarily related to any income. But all in all, it's a very complex system, it's extremely bureaucratic, and it's always a really good idea, I think, for people to try and seek help to navigate their way through that process, get help making the claim if they're unhappy with the decision, to get help to perhaps challenge the decisions. But social care services are sometimes subject to charges. If you're receiving care within your own home, then the local authority area that you live in has got devolved authority for making its own charging policy. And that is effectively a means test. If you go into a care home to receive service there, then the way in which that financial assessment is done is different. It's a national legal framework which sets out how much you should contribute towards the cost of your care, and it sets out how much income or how much capital can be taken into account in determining whether you make a contribution and what that contribution should be. Now, both of those systems are extremely complicated. They can be quite difficult to navigate your way through, or indeed to understand why a decision has been taken about what financial contribution you should make. And it's always a good idea through that process to get some advice to ensure that A, you're being asked the right questions, and B, that the amount that you're being asked to pay is the right contribution.